Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the KONTAINEROZ podcast. The podcast is sponsored by PortPro, the leading operating system for drayage carriers. Schedule a demo today at portpro.io. And don't forget to mention KONTAINEROZ for special pricing.
Nice.
The other intro I did
Very
that.
good.
We were both going back and forth. Special.
I think I needed to mention Containeros on there.
Oh, yeah.
But
you,
I'm sure
you
you
and
can-
Ricky's Transport
Right.
pulled that one in the podcast, too. You're waiting on it. Like, yeah, I forgot to mention
That's
that.
how I heard of it. Actually.
Mention.
One of my drivers mentioned PortPro.
So my guest today is Tony León, the owner of Leoness Express Inc.
That's right.
Correcto?
That is correct.
Tell us a little more about yourself and let's get this going.
So a little bit about myself. I'm just your average person. You know, I'm from Mexican descent. You know, parents came over here. You know, have two siblings. I'm right in the middle. Got a younger brother, older sister, and we grew up in Long Beach. Kind of moved around for a bit. Came back to Long Beach. So I'm a Long Beach, Long Beach guy, so just grew up here, in the whole port, area. Never really thought about doing trucking necessarily, although trucking has been in my family's, some of my cousins, uncles, have done it very well with trucking, owner operators, and so I thought to myself, starting off not really knowing what I'm gonna do, try the college thing, kind of more hands-on. Didn't really work for me. So then I met my wife, at the time my girlfriend, and it got a little more serious. I was getting older. I was 24. You think you're always old, right? You're super young and you're like, oh, I'm old. But we got married, that's where everything kind of just, the perspective kind of changed for me. Then we were expecting our first, and so I had to think a little more seriously about my future, because now I have people that depend on me, so children, right? So my work history, I was working at UPS once upon a time. Then I worked for a great company, CED. They're a consolidated electrical distributor. They're probably not going to watch this, different industry, but met a lot of good people there, worked alongside of really, really good people. And then from there, that's where, again, we're at, right? I'm debating where I want to go and where I need to go, because at the end of the day, you can't always do what you're passionate about, because it may not bring the amount of income that you need to sustain,
What are you passionate about?
So at the time I was passionate about being creative, just creativity, maybe like graphic designing. That's always been kind of where my passion's been, just creating things. And I still do that to a lesser degree, obviously,
So you do your own videos sometimes. That's you then.
I do my own videos sometimes.
For the company stuff?
For the company stuff. I'll get creative with some of the other guys in the company, like a good friend. He actually drives for us. He also goes to church with me. Eric Nazario. He's into cars. Like, he's big on rotary. Am I saying that right? He's gonna hate me for this. He's a rotor guy, kind of rotary engines with the Mazdas and all that. But he's very creative too. So that's kind of, we got creative with some things. We did some merch for some of the drivers.
Oh.
So I like to design a lot of the things that I do for the company, shirt-wise and everything like that.
Yeah.
But that was what my passion was. I was passionate about that. But that wasn't really where, I was going to be able to make an income. I didn't go to school for it, none of that.
Why don't we go back to, like, childhood? You had a passion then of what you liked then? Like, what was that like?
That's the thing, though. Like, I wasn't really focused on any one thing. I was just kind of just like a free spirit, like, just kind of going with whatever, right?
So not the average. I want to be an astronaut or
No,
this
maybe
or that,
maybe in my
a
mind,
lawyer,
maybe an
soldier.
officer, maybe like a police officer, maybe in my mind, considering that, you don't grow up with, especially in school, they don't really help you with some of the things that are, the realities of adulthood, like things you need to know, like, managing money, budgets, and getting really serious about a career. They just kind of tell you, like, you need to go to college, and that's that, right? And you need to strive for that. But college is not for everybody. Even like Elon Musk, the founder of Tesla and other PayPal and all that, he kind of talks about that. It's not for everybody. And so you've had people on the podcast kind of talk about that. You have welders, you have people just
Out of prison.
yeah, and like trades. So trucking was a blessing to me. Didn't really think about it too much. I love trucks, don't get me wrong, but really didn't think about it too much. I only got passionate about it until I actually started driving a truck, and enjoyed driving the long drives to, from here to the Inland Empire, from here to Vegas, from here, local, driving. It's a whole different world, and I love trucks, and I love Cascadia trucks.
So you don't want to talk about your childhood then?
The childhood part, there's
I see what you did there.
I think
Cascadias.
trying to avoid the childhood part, right? No, I mean the childhood. I'm very thankful for my mom, and my dad, but I say my mom because she had a lot to do with us, our growing up, and kind of, they say that the child's development in the first 6 years is very important. My mom was a stay-at-home mom, so she would cook, she would do everything. I'm sure average, Hispanic mom, literally if you don't get it together, you got chanclas, you got they address you by your first name, and
chanclas is being nice.
It's being nice, right? And my dad was very hardworking. From the pictures and the things that he told me when he started, he came to the country. He was selling anything elotes, anything fruit, anything like that. He was just hustling. And my mom always stayed at home. So I kind of had more of a relationship with my mom. And with my dad, it was more later on. Once I already kind of got out of the house, he's very involved with, his grandchildren. He spoils them, and everything like that. So he's a great dad. My mom's a great mom. Very thankful.
The grandparents, they don't give a fuck on. Fuck your diet that you have them on. They're eating candy today.
They don't, when somebody once said, the grandchildren are to be spoiled,
Yeah.
Coming from a grandparent, right? So yeah, I mean that's kind of the childhood in a kind of like in a quick nutshell. Yeah.
So there's any hardships that you remember from the time, or
man,
or fast forward?
I don't know if you want to call it hardships.
That you would want to share.
I mean, I think we grew up with very little essentials. I mean, like they say, right? Rice and beans, and
I love rice and beans.
Yeah, and I love rice and beans, but that's all there was. And then you had to get creative, right? So we didn't go out as a family much. There wasn't a whole lot of money there, right? So it teaches you to appreciate things, though, for sure. So if you're blessed later on, with more income, and you're able to buy nice things, I think you appreciate it a little bit more than someone who grew up with a silver spoon. And so I think that that was very important with to a certain extent. It obviously had a lot to do with who I am today, right? So my mom being at home, kind of giving us that one-on-one daily attention, and also growing up with very little. And I could tell you a lot of guys in the industry, and a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of millionaires, that people think that millionaires are just they were giving things. Some of them had to work, just like me and you. They had to start from nothing. and a lot of them appreciate having those humble beginnings because it helped them shape them to who they are, today, present. So
You don't think you'll be where you are today if you didn't have those experiences? Or you
I think
don't know?
I think it would be yeah, I think it would be different. I think it was very, very essential, yeah, to who I am today for sure.
At the time, you feel like maybe it sucked, and then now it doesn't, or
I didn't know.
you didn't have
I didn't know
a
anything.
perspective.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was kind of like I didn't know anything else.
Okay, you weren't comparing.
No, because I mean, I did. I tell this to my wife all the time. I did obviously have, some aunts that had a little bit more than we did. So when we would go visit them. I would look forward to the Ritz cookies, all of the good stuff that they had, the Chips Ahoy cookies, all the busqueras, right? All the stuff.
Those Ritz cookies, you wrap up the bag,
right?
And you're like, that's it. And then like 10 minutes later, you unwrap it again.
I would be constantly in their fridge.
Yeah.
I would be constantly, and I would try to be kind of like very quiet about it, right? Because I'm like, I don't want them to think that I'm like get caught, right? Constantly going in the fridge and everything like that. But so I didn't know any better. I don't have any real regrets, honestly.
What's your favorite memory from that time?
A good memory. There's a lot of good memories. Growing up with my brother and my sister. Had a close relationship to my brother because we're boys and my sister was older. But I would say those memories, just growing up, and playing with my brother Legos, and then when we got a little older, we were into the whole like Xbox and Halo and all that video games, right?
Did that ever happen to you when you go to sleep? You played so long and then you go to sleep and you see the characters running around. It happened to me with GTA.
With GTA, we played all that. Those were the games. The games in PlayStation and
when you're trying to do the codes,
they're very addicting. They're very addicting. Oh, the cheat codes, right? For
when you get them down and you memorize them, that's
I have a cousin that knew everything there was to know, and he was good at everything, but then again, I mean that was his thing, right? But I was never really good at many of the video games. In fact, when I do go visit some of the family, I'll just get on there and I'll play, and I'm not as good as I used to be for sure. But then again, I practice helps you, and I don't have the practice anymore. So
back to the whole I don't think you said you didn't have a specific thing in mind that you wanted to be growing up, right?
Nothing specific. I'm gonna be honest. Yeah.
Okay. So
yeah,
we're gonna scratch that one off.
No, nothing specific.
And now we're back to the present then. The passion.
Trucking.
Trucking.
So didn't start off being very passionate about trucking. It was more of like, hey, just reality, right? I need to make an income. Kind of like a leap of faith, right? So I knew that I wasn't going to make it with the income I had. I was working at a warehouse, doing a little bit of everything. I was doing some receiving. I was doing some shipping some stuff out. Doing some driving. So that's where I kind of saw my passion for driving. So I did have a passion for driving.
So that's how you ended up in trucking?
So I kind of jumped from, doing the whole kind of like box truck kind of thing, Yeah. It was actually a stake bed, 16 foot, that I would drive. I would do all of LA, Orange County. Time to time I'll go to like Ventura. I'll go to San Diego once a week. So I had a passion for driving.
Okay.
Right.
So this is the journey right now you're sharing.
Yeah, the journey, right.
For trucking. Okay.
Right.
Here we go.
So then again, I just got married. I started being a good boy. Trying to get my stuff together and kind of helped. I joined the church that we're at right now. Still, we've been there for 11 years, and and one of the crucial things for me was like. It all just came at the perfect time. Our pastor, I had just met him. He was big on just motivating, the youth to do stuff. And he still does, but I was much younger back then, right? I mean, we're talking about like 10 plus years ago. And so I'm like, I have to do something. If I'm gonna do something, I'm gonna stick to it, and I'm gonna try to be the best I can at it, right? So then I go to trucking school. I was a very slow learner, so I think it took me like 3 to 4 months.
What year was this? What year?
This was like in 2011.
How much did he pay for trucking school then?
It was a grand, a grand. And I think that was a pretty good deal.
Yeah, that was a very good deal.
Yeah. I
paid $1,000 in 2006.
I'm gonna do some promotion, I guess.
Yeah.
Total Trucking School. They just gave me the basics, and it was enough to get my CDL. Once I got my CDL, I think nothing has really changed much. Very hard to get a job. Nobody wants to hire you, especially like the well-known companies, right? The big companies don't want to hire you with anything less than 2 years. So had a disadvantage. I had to ask questions. Some doors opened up. Got my first job driving. They would work me like a mule. I was
you were a chucho?
A chucho from the very beginning, before I even knew what that meant. So working long hours, man. I remember, some days were different, some days were shorter, but a short day would be like working 14 hours.
Yeah.
Before
you got working, though, the test, what was the hardest part about the test?
Oh, the test. The hardest part about the test was, I would say, the driving. When you actually go on the road, because I remember being very nervous, And the truck that we actually tested on was a cab over. It was a 6-speed, if I'm not mistaken. So I had just kind of scraped by like the whole like learning to, shift. Didn't feel really confident. So I think that was the hardest part.
Did you pass on the first try though, or?
No, I didn't.
How many? Do you remember?
I didn't. 2.
20?
2 because I failed on the
2.
2 times. On the second try, No. So I on the first one, I didn't get to the driving because I didn't pass my in-cab inspection. The funny thing is that I didn't turn the switch on. So the buzzer never turned on.
Oh.
Right? So
how did they break it to you? That's it.
She let me go. She gave me a chance. The lady was very graceful. She gave me a chance, and I'm nervous. They didn't catch on to it. I'm like, afterwards, obviously she explains to me. I'm like, shoot. And we had to go all the way to San Bernardino. So big downer, but no, we just, I was confident, but maybe a little bit overconfident on the easy stuff. And so that's where I failed. But second time I passed it. Thank God I passed it. And I was very excited.
What'd you do that day?
I don't remember exactly what I did. I obviously called my wife, told her the news. I said, hey, I passed. She was excited, couldn't believe it. Because actually, I had passed my written test multiple times, about 3 times. Never really committed to going to trucking school.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I passed the written test already 3 times. On the 3rd try is when I actually committed. I'm like, you know what? I need to commit to something.
So have you done the test where it's like, yeah, y queda, it ends there.
It ends there. And that's the story of many people that I've actually talked with, It's easy to do the written test, so that's the easy part.
That's how you get your permit, right? You get
you get your permit.
You have it sit around.
And you have it sit around. Procrastination, the biggest enemy that we can all have, right? And some of us entertain it a little too much. So, but yeah, procrastination. So I didn't start driving until I was 23. 23. Got my first written test passed when I was 19. So you could see the, 20,
that's when I started, 19.
Yeah. So I didn't start when I was 19, but I got my written test completed.
Yeah.
But yeah, I heard it got a lot harder now. Everything got a lot harder, as far as getting your CDL. Effectively February, they made some changes. And so I think people that pass now, I think we need to treat them with a little more respect.
Yeah, you got to go in there with the permit already, I think.
Yeah, but I just think the test got a lot harder.
Good luck, guys.
Yeah, no, but
I'm just going to reinstate mine, luckily. So
right.
We'll see what's up.
But I think it's good. It's good because that means that the quality of the people coming into the industry is going to be that much better. Not saying that we had it easy either, but I think it's more seriousness to it as well. Like you're gonna be able to kind of filter through the people that are really serious about it and not, right? Because when you hear something's harder, you're like, oh, why even bother, right?
I wonder if it had an impact on like the big mega carriers that do the in-house schooling.
Yeah, I think it did.
Yeah,
for sure.
They had to comply as
Swift,
well with all that.
Yep, for sure. But yeah.
In the industry, what is your favorite thing about it?
The industry that we're in?
Yes.
Drayage, port hauling. My favorite thing, man, I'm going to be honest to you. I think my favorite thing was the amount of, man, like back then as a driver, you had a lot more options, right? So my favorite thing was that like you could be good at what you were doing, right? And you can get so good at it that you can pull like tricks out of your sleeves, where like somebody would take longer to do a move. So there was like that, you can bring in your talent and the experiences that you've accumulated and be able to pull out. If you're an owner operator, it's more money, right? But just like, developing, skill in being able to get loads out of the port and empties into the ports.
By options, you mean not like jumping around company to company. You mean your options of
in the ports,
how to
your
navigate.
Exactly. That was my favorite thing. One of my favorite things about the port industry is that it was different from the other trucking. We're just picking up a load from point A, a yard, and then just going to unload.
Here is Tetris.
Yours is like you have to be really hands-on if you're going to be good at it, right? And if you're getting paid per move, then
what were you really good at?
I mean, I was good because I started off doing some chassis. We're doing like pulling out of the rail, taking it to port A, whatever port we had to go to, and then we would have to sometimes pick up from a port and take it to a rail. So we would be quick about it. We would look at chassis, like scan a chassis from afar. Tires look good. Yeah. Hook up.
ICTF, pull up and just...
Exactly. Yeah. You would look.
Would you get the open release ones from F10 back in the day with the gensets going to Con Global?
We wouldn't do those kind of no, we wouldn't do those kind of.
Those were like...
Those were special.
$35-$40, bro.
Yeah. So as drivers, they would pay us back then $20 per chassis, right? So you could imagine you wanted to do like a drop and a pick from the same port. Didn't always happen that way. So you had to hustle if you want to make a $200 day,
Yeah.
So I never got paid per hour in the port industry. It was always per move, and I liked it that way.
You remember your biggest check as a rookie?
My biggest check for one shift.
When you got like that trucker money. Oh shit!
But let me just mention like where I started. Man, I got lucky if I made $700, and again I was working like crazy hours, right? Not the greatest company, but it gave me an opportunity, so I was thankful. A lot of people would quit the first 2 months, 6 months in that company. I lasted about like 7 months with them. Then I just quit. I worked for another good company. And then fast forward to the one that I was at where I was doing the whole chassis thing. A good check there was, working crazy hours too, but it was optional. But I was able to kind of like sometimes double that income, right? So a good check was like a week was, man, 11 to 1,200. Back then was like, wow, that was good, versus the $700 I was making, working those crazy hours too.
That's back in the day, like
we're talking about in 2012,
Yeah.
2012. So, I mean, that's when Dorito chips were still like $1.
Yeah, make hot Cheetos 99 cents again.
Yeah, make them 99 cents again, right? They're more like closer to $2 now. So that was a good check for me, I would hustle. I would make somewhere like on a shift from like 7 a.m. to like 4 or 5 p.m. I would make like 180 to like $200. If I made $200 or 220, I was happy. 180 was good. Quota. Yeah, 180 was good. So sometimes I would make the math. I would break. I applied at companies like many drivers. When you're starting off, I would apply to toll. Because I used to be union at a UPS. So I had like some union mentality, about it. Reached out to the union, I'm like, hey, I'm not in the union anymore, but I used to be at the local 396 at UPS, and, and they told me where to go to the Carson location. I forgot what local that one is for the ports of LA and Long Beach, and for the Teamsters there, and they were no help. They gave me a list, like, good luck here. Like, if you have less than 2 years, good luck to you. They really couldn't hook you up or anything like that, right? So to me, I followed the list. I went to toll. They had the location right there right here in San Pedro.
Are they still around?
They're not around anymore. I'll tell you a little quick story about that. Okay. So back then, I don't know if you remember, they were like making a big deal, right? Oh, like Teamsters, gets into toll, and so I'm like, I'm there. Like, I want to get in. I only had about a couple months, so I remember sitting down with the guy. Yeah, as soon as he had, like, I told him how much experience I had, he just closed the door on me, like, basically, right? Like, no chance. Like, we need somebody with 2 years, and even then, we're still looking at you kind of like very skeptical, right? Like, whether you're qualified or not.
Yeah.
But they were starting off at $19 an hour. I made the math. I was getting paid per move, right? And you have to also realize, if you're going for the benefits, they weren't going to give you the benefits right away. You had to work there for a certain period of time, right, before you get the benefits.
Yeah.
So I calculated what I was making per move, and I was making like $24 to $26 an hour. So I'm like, I'm getting paid per move. When I add my hours versus how much I'm making more money than some of these guys that are just starting a toll at $19 an hour, Yeah. And then I have flexibility too, I can work an extra couple of hours, right? And
so it's a matter of what you do with it, though.
It's a matter of what you do with it, yeah.
Because you're not gonna have the retirement plan probably on this end.
That's
unless
true.
You
very true.
Seek it yourself, right?
And I think that's where I think we get stuck all in the employee mindset. Also, not saying it's a good or bad thing, but I think that with the way things are changing, I think I started hearing, I started listening rather in people such as like Dave Ramsey, people like that. So I started getting kind of like an entrepreneur kind of like mindset, like, oh, there's more to, this. Like, I can be this, I can do that, I can, so I can be kind of like the architect of my own destiny, kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
And so I started looking at, I never had benefits other than UPS and when I was at CED. So I was used to it. So then moving on to an owner-operator really wasn't a big change to me, I was already used to looking for my own insurance plan, looking into my own retirement. And I think if you have a good balance of, if a company gives you a 401k plan, great, keep it. Nothing wrong with that. But if you could also start something on the side as an employee, right? Your own, like a Roth IRA, on, looking into mutual funds, like stuff like that. That can be sometimes more rewarding, especially because we're not getting any younger, right? Next thing you know, you're already gonna be ready for retirement. So, but never considered any of these things, and that's I think where again, school doesn't teach you any of that, unfortunately, for us, especially how I grew up, right? You just hear, hey, if you own a house, basically you made it to the top, right? Well, that's not everything, owning a house, there's more to it, right? Yeah, going back to that's where I would say that we were talking about. Again,
I took you off course a little bit.
We went a little bit off course, but
that it must be talked about or brought up at least, that a lot of people, Containeros, they're like, you make good money, but it's like it's not that common to have to plan for the future, retirement. You see a lot of people that I respect their hustle, like some older men like that.
Oh, yeah.
That it's like, whoa, like, you're still driving, bro, like, and they can't stop. I'm sure they would like to, probably, or who knows, maybe they don't. But
it's those kind of examples, right? I think that we need to be wise, man.
Yeah. If you ask them, they feel like they'll probably tell you, it feels like it was just yesterday I was 21 and now look at me.
Right. So it's a lifestyle, nothing wrong with it. Trucking is I don't want to say a dying industry, right? Because trucking, like, everybody needs trucking, but What I'm saying is like the last, somebody put it, how did they put it?
Just normalize it, having something to fall back on.
There's not a lot of opportunities like that, like how trucking offers, right?
Yeah.
Like there's not a lot of opportunities out there where someone without school preparation and this and that can make it big, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of the people that I've come to know, they started as a driver, you know, and they didn't stay there. I mean, they educated themselves reading books, investing into themselves, and surrounding themselves with the right people, right? To be able to scale up, right? Mentors, yeah, stuff like that. But yeah, so I you know, I have to say that so that company that gave me that opportunity where I was making those, you know, 11 to 1200, those nice checks, right? That I thought were good, and they were. They offered me a dispatch position, and I took a pay cut. And drivers, and I turned a lot of friends into my enemies. Yeah.
And you took a pay cut?
And I took a pay cut. My gray hair started coming from that. I started gaining weight, the stress. You know, some people are better under stress than you know, me.
Wait, dispatching, but you were a driver and then dispatcher,
And
or
then dispatcher.
What about owner operator?
Then
you're going in that order?
Yeah,
That's
so
how
I'm
it
going
happened?
in the order, right? So driver, dispatcher,
like
operations.
Yeah.
At the same time, I was doing dispatching, a small company, and then we went into again, owner operator after that, and then
with the skills from the dispatch,
right, and then so I was kind of like a dispatcher on wheels, like a one-man army kind of thing, you know.
Okay.
And then you know, you start evolving, you start growing.
All right. Sorry, I interrupted you. Let's start back with that. So you said, let's go back right there. From the driver to dispatch, took a pay cut, made some enemies. Let's go with green light.
The enemy part.
Yeah, let's go back to that area.
So I mean, I say enemies because a lot of people at that point disliked me. People that we got along perfectly, we shook hands, you know, just good relationships, you know, co-worker relationships, you know. Part of it was because I was a rookie dispatcher and I was making mistakes. And so, you know, when you mess with somebody's dispatch and you're dispatching them wrong, or people don't have faith in you because you're a rookie.
Yeah.
That had something
up a lot of people's days.
That had something to do with it, but I also think it's because of my work ethic too, where I was trying to do everything. So since I knew how to drive, and I feel like I was good at it, if a driver couldn't cover something, somebody called in, I would jump on the truck and I would get those containers or those chassis moved. And so a lot of people accuse me of taking work from them, and you know, and this and that, and you know, I'm like trying to make more money and this and that. And you know what I would do is and in some cases I would, but I rewarded those that helped me, right? So if a guy did a move for me, because they would get paid per move, the drivers, and so I would give him my interchanges so that he could report it on his manifest and get paid for it, right? So I would go there, do 2 chassis, and I would give him my tickets and say, hey, you report them like you did them.
Oh, that's cool.
Because he stayed an extra hour, did an extra one for me or whatever, you know? And so I was accused of all that, and you know, it put a lot of stress.
Like you had your favorites.
And favorites.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And that's gonna happen anywhere, and it's never gonna change. Because as drivers, you have a very narrow mindedness as far as like, because you don't know what's going on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
So you speculate a lot.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people will speculate about me. You know, like, oh, you have your favorites. This guy and that guy, you know, they're your favorites. You're always keeping them moving. And, of course, I would speculate also about my dispatcher. And so what I'm saying is that
you got a taste of it now.
We all do it. And the bad dispatchers ruin it for the good dispatchers, too. You get an experience with a bad dispatcher, and they have their favorites, maybe a little bit of mordidas, you know, here and there, and it ruins it for the good dispatchers, honestly.
But at the end of the day, can you genuinely say that, well, let me rephrase that. At the end of the day, we're all human. There's always going to be some truckers that maybe you didn't like. Or what is it that causes conflict between dispatchers now that you got a taste of that?
You obviously, it's just human nature, right? You're gonna click with some people more than others, and that's just how it is. But as a dispatcher, you have to put the dispatch before anything else, meaning that you're going to dispatch it because that's the next move, right? Now it's changed a little bit, right? But before there's more flexibility. I have these many moves to do. How can I move the pieces? It's just like checkers, just like chess, right? What's going to make more sense for me, right? And if somebody, and yes, I mean, sometimes, if somebody looked after you, you look after them, right? If a guy says, you know what, hey, I'm ready to go home, and you're like, hey, I got all this work, man. Like I'm gonna miss 10 loads. Can you help me out with one? I have this person help. Oh, sure, I'll help you out with one more. So that person, but let's say somebody else was like, no, I'm done. Like, and that's the kind of attitude that person gives you. Then yeah, I mean, you do little favors here, but that's not to say that you're like going to necessarily because this port is so good, like I'm keeping my guy here. You get what I'm saying? No, that would be wrong. That would be definitely wrong. Definitely not. But I think I think a good dispatcher knows how to balance, all of that, and also not really worry too much about the criticism, honestly, because people are going to criticize you in every aspect of your life, whether because you're doing nothing, you're doing a lot, or whatever the case is, So I think you have to have a very thick skin. I didn't have a thick skin. Took things very personal. Not very good for business at that point, But looking back, I don't regret it because it opened the door. I kind of look at it like, and especially I'm not going to get into details. Obviously, we don't have all the time in the world here. But the way that the doors were open to me to do the whole dispatching, I was a great driver, very responsible, took care of my equipment as if it was mine. And just try to be respectful, just try to be conscious of, my owners and everything. But I really think with that kind of commitment and just being an overall, just a good driver, good things come to you eventually and doors open. So I really feel like I was praying about this situation, honestly. Like I wanted to be a dispatcher. It had gone by once already. A guy left, and they hired someone. So I'm like, man, I should have talked to the owner. About a couple of months later, another opportunity came by, but I was very, very hesitant about picking up that call, that phone to make that call and inquire about, hey guys, this guy just left. Hey, can you guys consider me for the dispatch? I'm very much interested in exploring it. And so I didn't make the call. I hesitated that day. So the next morning, which was on a Saturday, the owner of the company calls me and says, hey, Tony, some things have happened, blah, blah, blah. We want to see if you would be interested in some plans that we have, but we want you to come by next week and talk about it, right? So I'm like, what can it be? So it turns out they wanted me to get the dispatch position, right? They said, because we see how your work ethic, we see, you're trustworthy. Sometimes you think people are not paying attention, so you always have to be, doing your best. Yes. And so they noticed that. And again, I was praying about this situation. I wanted the opportunity, not knowing what it entails and everything, but I just felt like that's where I wanted to go, And so the fact that they called me, to me was an answered prayer. And that was the start of that. Literally helped me to get to where I'm at today. If it wasn't for that, I don't think I would probably still been an owner operator for a much longer time, for sure. Because you would have a lot of people that start as an owner operator. They have to hire somebody that knows dispatching or that has accounts and all that. The fact that I could do that myself, dispatch myself. Literally, I was using like a little small tablet, dispatching from a spreadsheet. Giving this load to this guy or this booking to this guy, that booking, and updating it as I would go. I would get to the customer and I would update it there on my spreadsheet, right, on an Excel sheet, not a Google sheet. Now we use Google Sheets for some things in the company, but back then it was Excel sheet and my little tablet. But yeah, that's kind of where it started,
You said prayer and all that. So like, what made you know? The screech is getting kind of. What made you know what to pray for, or give you that instinct? Like, why pray for being a dispatcher? Like, what made you think you needed that?
I think to me it was just kind of like a kind of scaling.
Okay.
I think that's what it was.
Okay.
It was scaling, and there's a good verse in the Bible where it says, "Ask, and it shall be given to you; seek or knock, and the door will be open to you." And so I'm like, and then, but it also says like, if asking you will receive, right? Now ask good, right? Don't just ask for like, oh, I want a car, I want to, no, like ask. And a lot of things also, you can't ask for things selfishly either, right? But I do want to, provide for my family. I want to scale up. There's more out there, and that's kind of like the way I saw it. And I knew that God could open doors because He had done it before. And I told the owner later on. I told him, I said, hey, his name was Vic, and I told him, hey Vic, I know you're an atheist. I know you don't, or you're kind of agnostic, But I told him, what's interesting. I told him, and this was years back later, right? Obviously, I told him, when you guys give me the opportunity, at that time I was an owner operator. And I told him, when you guys give me the opportunity, I'm just giving you a little testimony here. I told Vic, I know you guys called me, but I really felt like God put that in your guys' heart to call me, because the day before I was hesitant to call you guys, and I didn't call you, but God was like, this guy's shy. He's not very confident. So let me do this for him. And now, they called me. And
do you still identify as shy and confident and shy and
I think we all are in a lot of ways. I think we can put a front sometimes, and I've worked at it, especially life, dispatching. You have to have a tough skin. So definitely not the person I was back when I started. I'm a different person today. In a lot of good ways, because I think sometimes you don't get places because you're kind of timid, and success, and it also depends on how you measure success as well, right? But I think you have to have a quality of, you have to be a go-getter. You kind of have to be, kind of be confident, assertive, know what you want.
Okay.
So I would say in a lot of ways I am, but a lot of ways I'm not shy anymore, at least. Yeah.
What's something you've improved on compared to back then? That, because you mentioned not confident and shy. Are there any traits you're proud of now that you've developed to their full potential, or getting there?
Traits
let's just go with that. The shyness and confidence, that was a thing back then?
That was a thing back then, for sure.
So on a 1 through 10, the then and now, what's the difference?
I mean, the difference is that I'm more conscious about it, and I know, I'm aware of it. So now I can kind of navigate around the shyness, or it's still in there somewhere. But it's kind of buried. It's buried. Okay.
Little technique right there.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, you develop techniques. You need to know yourself, for sure.
Doesn't
know
really
yourself
go away, huh?
Deeply. Know yourself. But I think what's helped me also is I think that people that are single are at a big disadvantage versus those that are are married and have their significant other. I'm very thankful for my wife. Sometimes I don't like what I hear, but it's helped shape me as a man as well, and know my weaknesses, right? And in many ways, and I'm sure this is the same way for you. Like they say, opposites attract, right? And it seems like that's the case in a lot of like marriages, right? My wife is completely different from me. But we complement each other. Like where I lack, she comes in. So she's involved in the company, and I actually dragged her into it. she was a stay-at-home mom, and she is in many ways, but at the same time, she's very involved in the business. And I wouldn't have it any other way, because I know my limitations. I'm good. I'm like a workhorse, right? I'm good at, and I'm a visionary too. Like, that's what I'm good at. I'm good at looking into the future and kind of like imagining or envisioning, right? How our companies might look like, and kind of what steps we need to, and you kind of add things as you go. But that's kind of where I'm good at. But at the same time, sometimes you don't have your feet on the ground, You're like dreaming, you're in the air.
Mm-hmm.
And she has her feet planted on the ground, and she's very, just kind of calls it for what it is, and just, so sometimes she's I've been in space, and she's had to pull me back into earth, like, hey,
movie Up.
Exactly. So, so I'm very thankful. I think that how I met her, and the role that she plays as a mother, and she's also we all kind of have our spiritual side, right? Whatever that is, it's different for other people. For me, I'm Christian. That's like my foundation for my marriage and for everything that I do.
Were you always religious?
No, I wasn't.
Because you mentioned now that I'm a good boy, so that must mean there was a bad boy period.
Oh yeah, of course there was a bad boy, and I was a bad boy when I met my wife. So
yeah,
I grew up here in Long Beach. I mean, cousins and friends and things like that, and that was my former self. But I think that
are there some things you can't mention because of your position now? Like, how people, they come out of they changed, right?
Right.
And for some reason, in some industry, depending on what they're in,
yeah,
you can talk about it no more because, the people, what will they say?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's appropriate for the platform we're in, because this is more for like, the upcoming driver, the people that are interested in the, like what we do as, Containeroz, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the people that know me, they know who I was and like what I'm about. I think a lot of people are surprised, especially if I haven't talked to them for a long time, right? And I'm the biggest. I can tell you, I'm like the person that would tell you, like, I'm even shocked myself of where like God has brought me, right? And my wife, because it's been a journey for both of us together. Like we met each other completely. The situation and everything. I mean, just our life at the moment, right? But where we're at today, I can only give credit to God for that, and the Bible does say that without faith, it's impossible to please God. So I had a lot of faith, and I still do, but I think it's like anything, right? You have to nourish it. You have to like work at it. You have to, seek God, seek Him through His Word. So the closer you get to God, the farther away you're going to get from all these other things, which were me and my old self, right? But going back, so my spirituality foundation to my marriage, how I conduct myself in business, things like that, and my wife, the fact that she's we're basically together. We're in agreement about how we bring this spiritual side of us into various aspects of our lives. So she keeps me on check sometimes.
What happened that made you be like, okay, this is it, I'm religious now? Or like,
I think
an epiphany, or like,
a couple of things, honestly. Like, to me, growing up, in the culture that, I grew up in, looking at things and kind of not having a different perspective, and then kind of like, I guess it would be an epiphany. I mean, what's the definition of an epiphany? It's just kind of like
a realization,
click, something
this
clicks, right?
Yeah.
There was a moment of that, I think, definitely knowing more or less also like the music, like the artists, right? There's some dark sides to some of the artists. Some guys just make good music and because they're artists, right? Some people are doing music for the wrong reasons,
Yeah.
So just kind of being exposed to some of that, and you know, there's some other stuff that we can get into, but to me, that kind of just shocked me, and I'm like, oh shoot, there's good and evil, good versus evil, and you know, there's an evil and there's good, and I think we all agree that there's good and evil, especially in the society that we're in today.
Yeah.
There's definitely good and evil. So, but one of the things that my realization here was that there's a verse in the Bible where it says none are good, right? There's none that are good. There's none that seek after God. And that was me. I'm kind of like, I'm not seeking after God. And I think I'm good, but man, the Bible, which I think we all respect, right? Although I never would read it, I had a respect for it. Especially because I would go to mass and everything like that. And, you know, the priest and everything like that would give, you know, a little brief, you know, reading of a verse or whatever. And so, but it would tell me that I wasn't good. So then I'm like, well, what's good? To what standard am I measuring myself? I think I'm good. I mean, I never killed nobody. I never did any of that, you know? So I'm like, well, the standard is God, and God is perfection. So I saw myself in the eyes of this holy God, right? That gave us 10 commandments. And I'm like, man, I lied. I didn't honor my father and my mother. I did some things, right? I made it a God in my own image that suited myself and my lifestyle.
Which was that?
Well, just, you know, I mean, not really taking holiness, you know. I mean, we think holiness is like, you know, no, it's just sanctificate, like sanctity, you know, being married, you know. So not being married is, you know, in the eyes, in my eyes, you know, it's not the way that God intended things, right? He intended things, and this is me like living my life a certain way, and then kind of coming to that, I guess you want to say, epiphany, that God intended things a certain way. And as you would buy a product, a phone, it would come with instructions, you know, on how to use it, a tutorial, right? So the Bible is very much that to me. It's like it's an instruction book of, you know, life, you know, and how to live life, and you know, obviously, you know, we could talk about like what Jesus taught and everything. We use a lot of like the golden rule, right? Do unto others as you would like them to do unto you.
Yeah.
Because he talked about that, and then in one of the podcasts that I listened to, which was a very good one that you did with Fercho, you know, when he was interviewing you. And in this industry, we do some really shady things to our fellow, truck drivers, man.
Yeah.
You know, we're like cutting them. We're waiting for them to like fall asleep in line and to cut them. And I mean, I'm guilty of all that, man. I'm guilty of all that, you know. So I wasn't very good to my fellow man, you know, and no one is. That's the truth, man. That's why we need a savior, you know. We need Jesus for that, and that's what I needed.
There's got to be a balance though, because like me having the advantage and knowing that you're religious or whatever, then I could really test it. Be like, oh, this guy's not gonna trip. Let me take advantage of him because he's going to forgive me. And I'm just keep going. He'll forgive me.
Right. And that happens.
It's a thin line between, you know, like.
There's definitely, people think like it's more of a relationship is the way I like to look at it. And that's really what it is, right? Because if God gave us his instruction book for life and gave us his word, then we kind of have to take him at his word and take it serious, right? So then there's really a relationship you can have with God, right? Now that's not like God like speaking to you like you would look at a TV flick on a TV and like, all right. No, it's more of you kind of you walk with him and you see him moving in your world, you know, in your life. You see opportunities that it's too much of a coincidence. Things you're praying about, like examples I gave, and a lot of us can say that we've had near-death experiences, and you're like questioning,
man, you know,
things like, hey, why am I still here? Like I should have been dead, or I should have. That never happened to me, right? Yeah. But I had people that are drug abuse, right? And they're like, man, like so I know a lot of people like that, you know, and they couldn't leave the addiction, and one day they just got on their knees and they pray to God, and just like that, gone.
Yeah,
they're free.
Yeah,
Doesn't happen for everybody, but
I felt like a hypocrite before because that's what would lead into this question is this other question. Did you hit rock bottom before you made the switch, or you did it before?
I think in my own way, not a rock bottom like anything with drugs or anything, but I think there was that moment where I'm like I gotta get myself together here. Like I gotta, my morals, like that kind of thing, right?
So it wasn't like seeking God just for your like, I need you now, so we're homies. Let me hit you up.
Like it did come to a point where I was kind of like, hey, I can't. Like in other words, if I'm gonna commit to this, the way that it was put to me, right? It's like this, right? So let's say this whole thing about Jesus being the only way, kind of thing, religious thing, and let's, for lack of a better description, is not real, right? Okay. I don't lose anything if I accept him and I receive him into my heart, and now I'm going to heaven, right? And I'm going to be with him when I die. But then if I'm wrong, right? What are the consequences of that, right? Yeah. That's kind of like the way it was kind of put to me. So it wasn't like a fear thing, but it was kind of like, it kind of makes sense, right? Mm-hmm. Like I don't regret anything, the changes that I've made and the things that, the work that God has done in my life and my family's life. No regrets whatsoever. I'm happy. I think that God has opened doors, blessed our business in many ways, has brought awesome people to the one guy that we just hired. I told you kind of a little bit about what had happened behind the scenes, right? This guy told us no. Like when we did the interview and everything, like afterwards he said, okay, I'm going to go a different route, right? But we felt like this guy was for us, mm-hmm. This guy is for us. So I told my wife, I said, hey, leave it in God's hands. If he's for us, maybe later on, he'll come. We felt for sure he was for us. But, we're like, hey, we're just going to trust that the right person's going to come. Well, anyways, so the guy that was supposed to start, right, dispatching for us. Yeah. Text him, hey, just want to make sure that next week you're going to start, and we're going to be, we're on the same page here. He's like, about that, actually, I found something else. Like, wow, right? Mm-hmm. Like at that moment, you're like, shoot. But again, you don't want to force things, right? So I'm like, okay, whatever, right? Within an hour or two, this guy that said no to us calls and says, hey, you guys still have that position available? Right? Yeah. So I looked at it as an answered prayer. And then it, just the way everything, and then just talking with him afterwards and everything like that, something on his side as well. Oh, it kind of doors closed. Oh, so it just like
guided him back.
Yeah, for sure. So he's a blessing, just like everyone else in our company. I feel really good about who we have in the company right now. The dynamics of the team. We just brought in Port Pro as well, so we're excited about that, and how that's going to help us. So we have a lot of good things happening in the company, man. For sure. And
before I piss off all the atheists out there, okay. I got one more question that's like related to religious matters, or okay. Do you have a favorite verse?
A favorite verse in the Bible, man. There's a couple of them. Man, I think Proverbs has a lot of wisdom in it. So in Proverbs chapter 1, it talks about that the fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. I'm not gonna say that's my favorite verse, but that's one that sticks out when I think about, like, trying to think about that verse that's gonna help me to kind of remind me of, because like Solomon, he was considered the wisest man that ever lived, right? So with that favorite verse comes like kind of my favorite example, of where God. So he was the son of David, the king of Israel, right? And he was the son that was supposed to take over him. And when he took over, he told God, don't give me riches, give me wisdom to lead your nation, your people, right? Which were the Jews, right? Israel. And God told him, because you didn't seek riches and you seeked like my priorities first, like, to lead my people, I'm not just going to give you wisdom, but I'm going to give you riches and everything like that. So,
Nice.
so I want to say like, that's kind of, I want to use Solomon's example, right? Because I'm not a very wise person.
Okay.
I'm very clumsy, so I need wisdom. I need guidance. I need to know what to do in situations that come. So there was one example that was presented to Solomon, right? This is kind of like where his wisdom was like, right, like displayed. There was two ladies that came to, he's the king, remember, right? Anything he says goes. Two ladies came to him, right? So it turned out that there was two ladies. One of the ladies, let's say a lady, A and B, right? So lady A, her son died. So lady B also had a son at the same time she did. So she literally took the baby from this lady over here and gave her the dead baby, right? So then the lady that woke up with the dead baby, she's like, this is not my baby, right? So they took it up to the king, to Solomon. And so Solomon, in his wisdom, he says, bring the child to me, cut him in half, and give one half to this lady and the other half to the other lady. So the lady that wasn't really her son, she was like, whatever about it. She's like, whatever, go ahead. But the lady that the son really belonged to said, no, like, don't do it. Like, let her have him, but don't do it. So that showed that she was the real mother.
Yeah.
Right? Because the real mother wouldn't be
Yeah.
like nonchalant, like, oh yeah, sure, go ahead, cut him up, whatever, like
Fair's
whatever's, to me, no. Like you're gonna be like, no, like I'd rather her have him and spare his life than for him to be, killed. So that's how he found out. So then he said, give the child to her because she's the mother.
And cut her in half.
And cut her in half, right? I don't know if that happened, but maybe.
That's why I'm not a king.
Exactly. Because you would be chopping up legs.
I'll be tripping.
You would get the port drivers on check real quick.
Okay, what's one verse that do you mind turning off the notifications?
Yeah, let me. Was that loud?
Very loud.
Oh my goodness, I apologize.
Gonna cut you in half right now.
Here we go. Yes. Yeah, we got it. We want to make sure we finish this podcast in peace.
No need, guys.
Everything's under control. Okay. But yeah, man. I think
don't bring the chainsaw.
No. Okay, cancel.
Okay. Hey. Okay.
Yeah, man. But it's so going back to the foundation. I mean, we went through some stuff. Yeah. I'm gonna be honest with you. It's a miracle that we're here talking to you today as a entity, as a company, right? Leoness Express Inc. I think 2020 was very, very, very challenging for many, many people, from drivers to owner-operators to company owners. I mean, COVID came, right? Nobody expected it. Mm-hmm. The retail business took a hit. The industry took a hit. Work got really, really slow. And the way that the company was structured and the way that we were running things, it really tested us. It definitely gave me some lessons learned, for sure. It strengthened my faith, for sure.
Yeah.
I had a little bit of struggle, I mean, like anybody would, hard times come to your life and you're just kind of like running like a chicken with your head cut off, that's a reality of it. But we made it, man.
The numbers were going down, and
no work. You have a responsibility to your drivers, to all those people that, if you really care about what you do, then you care about those people, even the owner-operators, right? Now, you may say owner-operators can just go anywhere, blah, blah, blah. But no, I mean, they're counting on you to give them work, and keep them busy and give them good work, treat them right. So that was a test for us, man. But if you endure the trial and you make it, right? The temptations and everything, you're able to make it to the other side, right? There's a saying or a story, right, where there was a couple of people swimming the river Niagara, right? Let's just say, right? Like very fierce river. 3 people, right? 2 people made it across. 1 person made it halfway, and it's like, can't make it, can't make it. He swims right back. It would have taken the same amount of effort if he would have just swam the other half, right?
Oh,
so,
yeah.
So either you keep swimming or you drown. So I chose to keep swimming.
Yeah.
I chose to keep swimming, and by God's grace, we're here, and I'm very, very grateful for where we're at right now. You went to visit us recently. It wasn't the same company, a year or 2 years ago. Some of the people that have stuck with us, some of the drivers, Eric, he's been with us almost since the foundation of the company. Jose's been with us also for a while. They can tell you if you interview them, we're not a perfect company by any means. We strive to be just, be as good as we can be, right, to our drivers. And we take feedback for sure. We take it serious. We try to be that much better, for the sake of the future generation of drivers too, for sure.
Excuse me. How do you come up with a budget for a trucking business, like once it's already active, the wheels are turning?
I am terrible at budgeting. You have the geek and you have the free-spirited person. I'm more like a free-spirited person. So there is that person in our company that does do the whole checks and balances when it comes to budgeting and all that. And that's my wife. That's one of my weaknesses, man. I'm not very good at budgeting. Some people are, and they're very successful. My wife is that for us in our company.
Okay.
So the way that she does it, at least from the limited knowledge that I know, because I like to.
You're blocked out.
I'm blocked out for sure. But no, I know some of it. It's very important. If you don't have a budget, looking at it from a personal, side of things, right? Any individual or marriage needs to have a budget, right? And especially in a company, you need to make sure that you're not spending more, right, than what you're receiving, right? Can't have that negative. You have to have be conscious that, especially in this industry, this. Man, you have your peaks and valleys. It's good, and ride it while it's good, but save up money, right? So your budget's gonna come in handy, right? Not just because you're making more money, you're gonna spend more, right? You're gonna keep the same amount of expenses, and especially personally, right? A lot of people, they start making money and then right away, boom, let's go buy that car, let's go get a house, let's go on a vacation or what have you, right? Everything with a good measure,
Do you have a formula or no? Or do you just get a feel for it? We feel safe now to buy this.
I think we've evolved on the budget side, for sure. Because again, we don't grow up, nobody teaches us these things. So as you acquire knowledge, our pastor is very big on budget. The church has a budget. We're told individually to be conscious of a budget, and on the business side, again, a budget. So we're kind of trained, in our minds to have a budget. So that kind of helped, a little bit. But if my wife ever agrees to an interview or being on the podcast, I think that would be she could probably give you a little bit more
insight
on budgets and all that, for sure.
You still have your license?
I still have my CDL.
Yeah?
Yep. Actually, I need to renew it this year.
So that's a good tool to have. Have you had to save the day?
I'm going to keep... No, I did actually... last year was a very, very challenging year.
Yeah.
Right? Very busy. Very busy. We have also things that kind of came out of the port appointment systems, which the steamship lines and terminals kind of kept us from returning empties, made it very hard, but also very hard to take out loads, right? So I know you're very knowledgeable when it comes to how how it works behind the scenes on the terminal end, right? From the dock workers to the terminals and like booking, dock workers and labor.
Somewhat, no, a little bit, no, a little bit.
Yeah, we know enough of it to understand that it's not always the dock workers that are to blame for things, and the appointment system definitely does not make it easy. So, I did get into the port. I think it was like last year, fourth quarter of last year, right? I wanted to go infiltrate, right, and see what was really going on. Like, what are these terminals doing? So what I found was that we were struggling to take loads out of Pier A because drivers were there for long periods of time waiting for a load. So I go in there around like midnight, right, second shift, and I go in with my chassis, and I go to my spot, right, wide open spot. But what I noticed was that my aisle, right, where I was at, it was on the 300s, I think it was like E or F. I don't know if E's here and then F's here, but the point is that, I was on this side, and I could see the truckers on this side. And there was 2 gantry machines per aisle, right, extending all the way from the 100s all the way to where I was, 300s. However, there was only one of them that was manned, that was being operated on each side. 2 on each side, but 1 on each. And if I had a count, there was at least like 25 to 30 truckers on this side, and there was like, I don't know, man, like 30 on the other side as well. At the midnight hours, which you already know, they only have like 2 hours and a half to work.
Not everyone's going to make it.
Yeah, they're not going to make it. So that's what was going on. They weren't booking enough labor, enough guys to operate. Because I get it. Maybe one was broken down.
Yeah.
But not both. Right? And so a lot of it has to do with the terminals manning these machines to get us out. And the incentive is not for them to hurry up. Right? Because if you don't get the load out, they're charging for the space that container takes up.
It's a very weird system.
It's a win-win it's like, for them, for sure.
It's one of those businesses where it's very strangely set up.
Yeah.
To where it kind of pays to not be productive.
Right. It and you have to also see, like, perspective is key here, right? Because you have to look at the perspective of others, right? So the perspective on the terminal end is that the steamship line makes a large percentage of the demurrage that is paid, right? Terminals make very little. They're only getting paid for the yard space, like anybody would that owns a yard or is renting a yard, right? But the steamship lines are the ones that are racking up the money. Yeah. So the incentive is not to hurry up from that end, right? And then from the dock worker end, you have a lot of people. People get comfortable in any kind of job. They have seniority. They're making great money. It definitely doesn't make sense for them to work overtime. Does not. They're getting taxed. Crazy, right? I mean, I can imagine how much they're getting taxed, making over $50 an hour, at the end of the year, as an employee. I mean, there's not a lot you can write off.
Yeah, that's true.
Uncle Sam is taking a lot of money. So they're not incentivized to work extra, right? So there could be a shortage, especially when the pandemic hit, of dock workers.
Yeah.
But I think more than anything, it's the terminals aren't really asking for the amount of workers that they actually need to service us as truckers, many times. And then we can also conspiracy theories like sabotaging, purposefully, like, the automation and all that, but I see it. If you've been in the ports, you see it. But more so like when you're looking at it from, backstage, right? You're in backstage, you're looking at how all the things are moving, right? You see these things, and a lot of it's politics too, fortunately.
So what's your least favorite thing out of all the things that are wrong with the ports?
My least favorite thing, Man, that's a man. I can open up a can of worms here, man. My least favorite thing that we don't have too much control, you know, over getting the job done, you know, the loads. I mean, you can have a lot of drivers and not get the workload done because you're dependent on the conditions of the port. You know, I think that's the thing that I dislike the most too. You know,
being ready to go and being stopped. Like,
yeah,
what's
like,
up?
you know,
I have the
right.
manpower. Let's do it.
Exactly. So it takes a great deal of effort to run a trucking operation, right? Especially when you are having day and night drivers, right? So you have an operation at day, you have an operation at night. It gives you an advantage, right? Because now you're covering around the clock, you know, like you're taking things in, pulling loads out, or exports, imports, whatever you have going on. But you could have all of that, but it's still going to be dependent on the terminals,
the conditions
of the terminals. So you have no control over that, absolutely no control over it. And it depends on, you know, peak season. It depends on when it's, you know, slow season. Like peak season, you have too many people at the terminals, so, you know, congestion, right? When it's slow, you have not enough dock workers, right? So you may think like it's slow, so I should be in and out, right? Like you would be in a like grocery store, like a mall or something, right? Yeah. Doesn't work that way. They order less dock workers.
Yeah, it's always
exactly. They always, because they need to save money. I mean, I guess I get it. It's expensive. Employees can be expensive. So you got to look at it from that perspective too. But I think saying the truth would help a lot of us get to the real bottom of, like, because people have been trying to fix the supply chain issues for the longest time. I mean, before me and you were still in our diapers or you like babies into the trucking industry, you know, and a lot of things have changed, but we're still dealing with the same problems. But I think it's been more exposed. I think definitely like before, like, you know, whatever we were doing kind of seemed like it wasn't really appreciated, but now people are seeing it when they go to Costco, when they go to the market, when they go to that furniture store, and they have to wait weeks to get that couch, or they have to wait, you know, pre-order some, or, you know, back orders everywhere, left and right, because what we do is important. I think you said this, where we're the ones that it starts with us, right? In the trucking industry, right? You have the OTR guys, you have LTL, you have all these other you know, segments of the trucking industry, but they can't discriminate against us because we're the ones that are bringing the stuff out, taking it to the warehouses, where then it gets distributed, right? However it needs to. Yeah. Right. So we fulfill a big part of it, but we're part of an ecosystem. Longshoremen, you know, have their part in it. The terminals, the roads, you know, everybody in between, the community, you know, which has fought us, you know, last year, right? They're like these truckers, you know, parking in front of my driveway, and which is, I get it. No, that's wrong. But the city getting really hard, you know, with the truckers, as far as parallel parking, you know, when you're not really blocking anybody. You're blocking yourselves, right, within your own company, right? Yeah. It's like, I'm not blocking anybody. We're in a dead end street. Why are you guys giving us tickets? They're not allowing you to stack containers, right? When terminals don't allow you to return an empty, right? So now you're stuck with all these containers. You can't even return them. You're literally against your own will. What are you gonna do? Dump them in the ocean?
I know you would like to.
You would like to, right? And your frustration, right? Yeah. You're like, but no, you would get charged for it, right? Literally, you would have to declare bankruptcy.
Am I crazy because so you get this container, you go deliver, it's empty, it's not your property, and the owner doesn't want to receive it, but somehow you still get billed for having it in your own facility. And you can't bill them. Why
Right.
is that? Like,
we
am
should,
I tripping, or is that something?
they should own up to it and pay. So there's something very wrong about that. I think anybody with some common sense can be like, yeah, you know what?
That's a bully.
That is a bully for sure. Yeah, because you know, you reach out to the terminal, to the steamship line, and you're like, hey, I have your container, steamship line. Hey, I can't return it. Help me. Oh, sorry, you know, there's congestion. Sorry, there's nothing we could do. Get with the terminals. Terminals throw it back at them, like, hey, get with the steamship line.
Mm-hmm.
They're just throwing it at each other. You get nowhere. So
You could just not bill me.
sometimes, and that's the thing, right? Yeah, that's true. You know, if you're really good at that, 50% of the time you can get the stuff waived. But then imagine the amount of, right? I mean, just the labor that it would take for you to go through each container,
Yeah.
fight it, because you have to bring a case to them, right?
Yeah.
And so, like I told one steamship line, right, on an email, because it was very frustrating. I mean, we had their containers stacked in our yard, and it was to the point where it's like we can't take out loads now, because we know that those empties weren't going to be able to go in once they were unloaded. So, like I told them, it is when I was very, very, very intense with this and frustrated with the situation, and I told them,
all capital letters.
you know, yeah, like, you know, you guys don't allow us to return your container, right? So against my will, I'm having to keep these containers here. And then when it comes down to billing us, the burden of proof is going to be on us to prove to you that you didn't allow us to return your container. So that's very unfair. At the same time, you're not going to accept any responsibility for the extra chassis that the BCO, the customer, is going to be paying for, and the co-signee, and the storage. Storage is not free. Terminals charge it, right?
Yeah.
Truckers should charge it as well, right? So all those are the things that, you know, they're not going to pay for sure. They'll probably waive the extra days that the container dwelled,
Mm-hmm.
but they're definitely not going to pay for the chassis and the storage. Definitely not. I have not seen. Hopefully, there's somebody out there that can maybe say like they had a success story, but I would say for the most part, no, definitely not.
Is there usually a face for someone in a steamship line? Like, there's no face of steamship lines, huh? Like, someone that you can address directly and be like, let me talk to you about this situation.
Probably, I'm sure there's you know, you might be able to know someone and they might help you, but it only goes so far, you know. I mean, because you have to realize, I mean, how many containers are you moving, right? Some companies are moving like 300 containers a week. Some of them are moving thousands of containers a week. For every container, you have to fight individually per container, right?
Mm-hmm.
It can get overwhelming, for sure.
But have you heard of anyone though? Like, see how in the terminal there's the Mario Cordero, or what's his last name?
Mario Cordero in
the executive directors.
Oh yeah, you're talking about Port of Long Beach.
Gene Soroka.
Gene Soroka from the Port of LA.
They kind of give you that whole like
they know what's going
update,
on,
you know, and
for
bring
sure,
you
yeah.
up to speed. Is there someone like that for steamship lines?
There's only so much they can do, man. I think that the representatives for the steamship lines outweigh the representatives for the trucking industry. So the steamship line and the equipment provider representatives, right?
Yeah.
That make a lot of these rules and everything like that on the UIA. We're at a disadvantage for sure.
Yeah.
I just can't make change.
I feel like we can't get a hold of them in a way like to like talk about it.
You're not, because you have to remember they're part of an association too, like per se, right? Like the steamship line equipment provider, you know, side, and then you have the trucker side, and the rail side too as well. You got the rail as well, but the representatives for the trucking industry are not many. They're outnumbered by the ones that represent the steamship lines. So by that observation, like, you can't really make a change that favors us. But now you have to fight it. Where the fight is at right now, as we speak, is gonna be making like California, for example, right? We're trying to make the case with the federal government to step in and kind of regulate some of this and help out with some of the like laws and all that, or what have you, right? So California, from what it looks like, might be stepping in early next year with some new guidelines that we need to all abide by in this industry that would help us, give us a little bit more leverage on our end.
You think so? You have faith in government? It seems that every time they tap
I don't have
into
faith
something, they kind of
ruin it. Or I have a little bit of trust in the people that are carrying out some of, like, pushing for this change. You know, they're very good people. Very good people. I don't want to throw names.
Yeah, so they'll see like the details and see if it makes sense.
Yeah, just from the stuff that I've been able to, like, how, like, the limit, like, I've been involved to a certain limit. But you have to educate yourself because, I mean, that could be very instrumental into how you change your company or how, you know, if, you know, you survive in this climate, you know?
Yeah.
Because imagine, at the end of the day, you're stuck with the bill as a trucker. You know, you owe the steamship line this money, whatever that is, thousands, hundreds, I don't know. It can get pretty crazy. There's been some lawsuits, truckers versus steamship lines, and they've won.
They win, right?
They've won some of these lawsuits for sure.
You literally go out of business then with some per diem?
Some people have gone out of business for sure. Yeah, especially with COVID. A lot of companies went out of business.
So you have to file like bankruptcy and then...
There's businesses, there's trucking businesses and drayage that are going out of business this month as we speak.
It's going to get worse. That's what I'm hearing. The next 8-9 months.
It always gets worse before it gets better. You know, I had a talk with a few of the guys in our company and, you know, look at history. Just look at, you know, people felt like that back in 2008. People felt like that, you know, back, you know, just keep going back, you know. And so I would say, you know, don't panic. Just be optimistic. You know, save your money. You know, if you're eating 6 tacos, maybe, you know, eat 3.
Oh, man.
You know, hey, some of us can afford to lose a little bit of weight, right? I know I can. So, you know,
same. So
it's not like the end of the world, man. I mean, we have it so good. You know, you have to look at people like in what's that country where gas is like $9. It's like in some Latin American country. I don't know if it's Costa Rica or I forgot where it's at. They're paying like $9, you know, a gallon.
Shit.
And imagine, and look at their like their economy, right?
Yes.
I mean, but they're not complaining. They don't talk about it when they sit at the table like, hey guys, can you guys believe that gas is $9? But yet we're here talking about gas. We're here talking about that. You got to look at everything's proportion. Like it just is relative, right? So if the cost of living goes up, then at the same time, eventually, you know, you're going to get paid more for what you do, right? Whether it's a company.
Depends.
You know, eventually it will, you know, and we don't need necessarily, you know, a minimum wage kind of thing to step in. It does balance itself. For example, what COVID did do, go ahead.
Like my rent, it's been going up $100 every year regardless.
Yeah, you're right. There's some things for sure that are exaggerated. I mean, property, everything. Yeah, I would say that has gone ridiculously high, crazy. I think property values went up like 20% this year. I think or last year. It's just crazy. That's a lot. But going back to so people are gonna make more money. Now it doesn't happen as fast as we would like it to. Because it's like cause and effect, right? Like there's a reaction time to everything, right? But I think what COVID did do is it kind of put a focus on the trucking industry, like how important we are, right? How vital we are to this economy, the role that we play, and so it also helped drivers get more pay, right? Drivers. Let's say if they were making, like, let's just take somebody without experience. They would start off at somewhere like $16 to $20 an hour, let's say, right? Then it went up to like anywhere from $20 to $25 an hour to start. You know?
Then 25,
and incentives,
28.
and incentives, right? So that was a blessing in disguise for a lot of the drivers that came into the industry. They came at a very good time.
Yeah.
Right? And we could argue, obviously, it was a long time coming. Like that should have happened a long time ago. right? Where drivers get more money because now, I have to justify if I'm going to charge, whoever it is more money for the service that I provide to them, right? Because it's all relative to my cost, right? So if I'm paying drivers more, I have to raise this up. And it didn't just happen in one or two examples. It happened across the board in the industry, where you're a trucking company, he's a trucking company, that's a trucking company. Everybody's like, hey, I got to charge you more. Fuel's going up. Drivers don't want to drive. They don't want to get into the trucking business. The ones that we can't retain because, we're not paying them a salary that is to their, to their liking. This company's paying more.
Yeah, got real competitive.
Got very competitive, right? Some people were paying, anywhere from like $35 to like $50 an hour for a company driver with experience. 2 years of experience. So I had guys, contact me when it started getting a little bit slower. They're like, hey, are you guys hiring? Well, not really, but it's I guess it got slow for them, right? They didn't tell me that. I kind of figured it.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked them, well, hey, if you don't mind me asking, like, what's your reason for leaving the company? I'm just looking for more pay. And then when they told me how much they were getting paid, I'm like, stay there. Like, right? Like, yeah. We're always looking like for the greener grass, right? Like we think the grass is greener on the other side. And so I would say as a driver, don't jump from company to company, especially if you're new. Establish your experience, because also you have to realize as an employer, we're looking for how long was that person at that job? Was he jumping from company to company? Because if he's jumping from company to company, then he's going to jump from company to company. He's going to leave us. We want somebody that's showing us a resume that's stuck at it for 6 months to a year. That shows at least some commitment, right? So a lot of things can work against you as well. You
guys really do call the other company?
Do we call other companies?
Yeah, like, hey, like for reference, Oh, it
yeah.
says here Felipe was drinking in the work.
Right. Well, you have to, right?
How was Felipe when he was with you for the last 6 months? You check up like that?
You have to. You have to, right? You do your due diligence. You reach out. Sometimes you're not able to. I've had people call me. JB Hunt calls me about old drivers that have came and gone in our past, and I tell them the truth. Because the same way if he was a good driver, I want to make sure people are telling me the truth, right? To qualify this guy, I'll tell him the truth. If he was a great driver, I'll tell him he was a great driver. If he was a bad driver, that's why, again, we go also drivers, be good at what you do and be honest and be a hard worker, because it will come and bite you, right? If you're not honest, if your work ethic is not there, if you're just sloppy about the way you do things, if you're milking the clock, if you're just not going to stand out. Somebody that is a person that is, in Spanish it would be like íntegro, like their character, right? They're honest, hardworking, all that. It's just a matter of time before you scale up, right? Employers are looking for those kinds of people. Those people are hard to come by. So when you find someone like that, like, you're willing to pay them what they're asking for, if not a little more. So be that driver, be that driver that, and I like to think I was that kind of driver, and again, the opportunity was presented to me because I was considered a responsible, someone they could count on, which is why I was given that position of dispatcher, right?
Yeah.
And I worked crazy hours. Sometimes even putting my family in second place.
It happens.
Yeah, right? Because we think as men, like, work. That's what we're designed to. It's in our DNA.
Yeah.
It's at least most men.
Yeah.
There's some men. Right? There's some men that don't. But anyways, for the sake of the content, right? We're just, that's how we're designed. And so, but we forget something.
Mm-hmm.
We forget sometimes that we're working, who we're working for. We're not just working just mindlessly, like just work. We're working for your wife. You're working for your kids and for a future, right? So, man, sometimes I just got stuck in that, in that work kind of environment, and because I felt like I owed it to my employer, and my dedication and everything had to be there, and I had to be the very best at it, and so I would sometimes go home. I lived really close to the ports. So, I would go for round 2 sometimes. I would go home, eat something really quick. Sorry for shaking the table there. I would eat really quick, and I would be back at it. Monsters, anything, coffee, I was very slim, so I didn't have to eat a lot. And I was very quick, very active. Again, the tricks, right? I was good at it. I was passionate at that point about what I was doing. I was good at it. So anything I could do to get me, sometimes the only thing I would sometimes not do is cut people. Oh. Because I was very shy. So
you just roll your window up and look straight.
But anything, right? But anything else, I would definitely do it. Tricks, right? Like we can go back to, there's those tricks. Right? I hope none of the terminals are watching this right now. But there's tricks you can do in the terminals, more so back then, right?
Yeah, they got played out.
They got played out for sure. Bid inspections, all that kind of things, right? All those things.
A collection of those.
Exactly, just to be able to get out, right, with that container, and then be able to time everything, right? You knew when the lunches were at each terminal, and if
it's worth it to go in and risk it on an empty stomach, or make that pit stop on the way.
You get sent to the trouble window, and instead of going to the trouble window, you go secure that chassis because they're on lunch. Why are you going to be sitting there and standing in the trouble window?
Yeah.
You go get that chassis, you go do your thing, you park in the trouble window, and then go walk over it. Now, at least you have the chassis.
Or if you have an empty, go burn it meanwhile. Exactly, right? So, yeah, exactly, things like that. So common sense things, right, that normal drivers probably wouldn't think of doing. Yeah.
Especially if they're getting paid per hour. But there has been a generation or a group of drivers that I have seen in my own company, but also in other companies, that get paid per hour, but they have that hustle mentality, and they're not happy with just sitting there. They're not happy with just mediocre, like just kind of, lifestyle. Like they wanna hustle. They want to earn that promotion. They want to scale up. They're already thinking about where they want to go, and that's the kind of mentality that we need. Honestly, I have no problem with drivers leaving my company if it's because they're gonna better themselves, right? They're gonna become an owner operator, right? And they're gonna do it right. There's a right way of doing it and a wrong way of doing it too, right? Yeah. So I tell the guys, stay in our company, for as long as you need to stay to get that experience. And also, if you're trying to be an owner operator, save up your money. You're making money right now, just save it for a down payment, or hopefully buy a truck cash, right? So the way I got my truck, the first truck, was the owner of the company gave me an opportunity. I couldn't get a truck. I couldn't get finance. I couldn't get insurance. I couldn't get any of that. It was impossible. So they helped me. They gave it to me in payments, right? They gave me one of their trucks. I kind of showed it to you. It was a 2009 Sterling. Not the best truck, not the most comfortable, but definitely
not the quietest, right? Series
60 engine, very loud regions and everything like that. Like you would literally get people upset. But it worked, but that's where drivers are thinking about that Kenworth. They're thinking about that Peterbilt. No. Like start with maybe an international, maybe with the Cascadia, Freightliner, or even a Volvo, and then maybe later on, maybe get that truck, your dream truck or whatever, But definitely, I give all this advice because, again, I'm looking back to if I had known some of the things that I know today, right? Could have been like a shortcut for me. It took me, let's say, 10 years to get where I'm at today, right? If I would have known this, if you would have told me certain things, I could have probably cut that in half, 5 years, right? So it's a time saver, right? Knowledge can shave a lot of time in your journey, right? So for the drivers, I kind of try to save them a lot of the headaches. Now, I will be honest to you. Some of them have not listened to my advice. And despite the things that I've told them, they've gone the other way. And it has not ended well for them. And it's not because I'm like a Solomon, you know, like
Gone the other way, how?
you know, like they go against the advice you give them.
Oh.
You know, like one of the advices that I would give someone if they were to tell me like, hey, would you advise me? How should I start? You know, like, should I have like this much experience, you know, less than a year in trucking. Should I just get a truck right now? I tell them no. We should probably wait minimum a year to 2 years because, you know, work under someone. Yeah, I tell this to the guys too. Like, take advantage that you guys are working under us because the breakdowns, the expenses on the truck are not on you. But yet you get to see what can happen, the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? On
someone else's dime.
And on somebody else's dime, exactly.
Sounds fucked up, but
that's the truth. So that's what I tell them. Like, in other words, learn at our cost, right? Learn at our cost.
But try not to fuck up too much.
Exactly. So and also develop habits that are going to benefit you when you become an owner operator. So you're getting paid per hour, but look at the moves you're doing and calculate. If you were an owner operator, could you make it?
Yeah. But they would have to know the rates as well.
And they would have to know the rates. And a lot of them do. I know. I mean, it's not a thing to share rates with your drivers, but we have owner operators.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And
¿A ti cuánto te pagan por esta?
Yeah, and they know. Drivers know more than you and I. You know, I knew a lot of things that because people talk. And it's okay. I mean, I'm not shy to share the rates with the driver. That shows to me that he's committed and he's in it and he's serious and he wants to better himself. Hey, look, this is what you could make, or just simple numbers. Like, hey, you could make, after your costs, you can make $2,500 to $3,500, on bad day, good day, or something, or a good week, right? Something like that, just so that they have, and then break down the costs, right? Like how to break down their costs, their registration, their insurance, their truck payment if they have one, and the fuel, like how to break down all that cost, right? That then helps them to make a better decision and to really weigh the pros and cons should they get into or not get into, So I told some of them, honestly, you guys are making money as drivers right now.
Have you mentored any driver and then they ended up doing their own thing based on your advice, like successfully?
Yeah, so like based on some of the, advice that I was, just briefly kind of talking about, there has been some guys that have started as a driver and are now owner operators, and they're doing fairly well. There's only one person that I can think of right now that maybe, if you want to say that whether they're doing good or bad, they probably didn't do too good. And that's because there's nothing new under the sun. There's like, if you've done it, that means someone else has done it, right? And you don't want to reinvent the wheel. You want to just copy the wheel, right? Just kind of add your little touch to it. But yeah. So some of these guys try to reinvent the wheel or do it their own way, and it,
you can't take a shortcut.
You can't take a shortcut. And I think that the problem here is that you think like an employee when you become an owner operator, and you have to realize you're running a business now. And the same things that worked for you as a employee and as a hourly driver don't work as a owner operator, right? If you're thinking that you're just going to work, 4 or 5 days a week and, and just pretty much just have a more easier, relaxed,
because you make more now.
Job, because you make more, you're thinking, but you have more responsibilities and more risk for, right? Without risk, there's no reward. But at the same time, you have the right, like 3 things that I would say that worry a owner operator, things that can go wrong, such as like accidents, which put your truck out of service, breakdowns, which put your truck out of service, and then accidents, personal accidents on the job or out of the job, right? That put you out of service, right?
That fuck out of service.
Yeah, and that could be literally the thing that literally puts you out of business.
For
as
an owner
operator,
yeah,
right? Especially if you don't have a budget, and you don't have savings, So I've had a lot of close calls, for sure. In my experience, not knowing about budgets and not being disciplined, not being disciplined for sure, and then having a lot of expenses in the beginning, truck maintenance. If you get a truck that needs a lot, like an overhaul, you could put a lot of money into a truck. Things are very, very expensive. They were back then, and they're more so now.
Mm-hmm.
So,
you think we covered already the right and the wrong way to do owner-op lifestyle?
a right and a wrong way to do. I mean, every person is their own world, right? Like a wrong way. I would say kind of like the same thing. Not having a budget, not being disciplined. I think it's the wrong way of doing it. Very bad approach. It's only a matter of time before you reap the consequences of being, undisciplined in the way you conduct yourself. Such as, again, not working enough, thinking that you're just gonna take it easy. I think I worked this at the same intensity when I became an owner operator as I did as a per move driver. To me, it was just kind of like, man, if I'm doing these many moves as a driver, as an owner operator, I can make a lot more money, because I feel like I'm good at it.
Yeah.
So I would say, again, don't keep working hard until you reach your goals. And if you reach the goal that I think everybody's trying to accomplish, which is eventually to not have to work or not to have to work as hard. But I think that, everybody should have at least, depending on the age that you start to, right? I'm not as young as I used to be. But if you're young, if you started trucking very young, have like a 25-year goal, more or less, you retire hopefully by 50 or less than 50. And if you do everything right, you keep your cost low. And, no matter how much money you're making, to a certain extent, right? But you're able to stash away more money. And then with knowledge, doors are opening, you get into other things, such as, for yourself, I mean, starting the whole Kontaineroz, I mean, works out and has a lot of potential, but yet you're not done with it. We have to work at our craft and it could prove to be very rewarding. So having multiple options, incomes, work towards that, I think would be very beneficial to anybody, because the same thing as an owner operator I found true. The same thing I tell my owner operators that help us, and I say my owner operators because they help us. They're very faithful. Is that don't just count on one company. Don't just count on us, because if we slow down, you need to have options. You can't put all your eggs in one basket.
Yeah,
you can't. You have to keep moving, keep the wheels moving. Whether that's because we're paying you more, they're paying you more. Like, at the end of the day, there's only so much, that relationship can get to. Like, at the end of the day, you have to pay the bills, right? You have to pay the bills. So nothing wrong with that. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. But yeah, definitely as an owner operator, there's definitely things that you can do right and you can do wrong.
Do you have a port story? A crazy port story?
My goodness. Port story. Wow. So that's a stumping, like you stumped me right now as far as like trying to remember a story. A guy tried to fight me at APM terminal. We were in line. It was during lunch.
Was this in your
my own truck?
This is before you were religious, or before you?
No,
were...
I was obviously
Ya eras un good boy.
I was a good boy.
Okay.
This guy was military. At least he told me he was. He told me if he said what did he tell me? He called me a smart ASS and I don't know what else.
Mm-hmm.
He goes, I'll pull you out of that truck and basically give you a piece of
yeah. I'll have you know I was head of my blah blah blah.
You know the environment, right?
Yeah.
So what happened was the line was moving very slow. Of course, there's one line moving more than the other, but my line wasn't moving too fast because during lunch they do keep some of the pedestals open, but they move very slow. Right? At least it seems that way because the lines are moving, especially as they're getting close to opening. They're getting out of the lunch, period. One clerk answers the speakers a lot quicker than another one. So our line wasn't moving. It was moving so. And but what I was doing is I'm putting my legs up. I'm relaxed. I'm waiting for two trucks to move, two spaces, before I move forward. Well, this guy, I guess I wasn't moving fast enough for him, and somebody was honking. I didn't know who it was. And then I got kind of curious, and I find out it's the guy behind me. He's honking at me. So kind of a little bit of me is like, how dare you honk at me? I'm going to take my sweet time now, Well, he gets off and he comes to the thing. He's like, In other words, like, move forward. Like, what's your problem? Like, move forward. So that I kind of thinking in my mind, I'm going to reason with him. And no, he said I was a smart mouth and blah, blah, blah. And, he was going to beat me up. So, so look, thank God none of that happened. But the fact that happened to me was never looking for a fight, never none of that. I think
that sounds pretty peaceful compared to other shit that we've seen out there.
Yes, and on video, right?
So
Stuff that has gone viral. Yeah, it's gone pretty good, honestly. Never look for trouble. I think if you look for trouble, trouble will find you, right? So
yeah,
I've stayed away from trouble. But a crazy port story would be that one, I think, that experience.
If you weren't in the industry, what would you do? What would you be doing, you think?
Maybe, you know what? Honestly, maybe like life insurance. I have my license for life insurance. Maybe that,
you always find something.
That's a good question. I think anybody who is motivated, who is always going to find something.
Imagine though, like having to reinvent yourself. Like, do you feel sometimes that this is your identity at times? Like, what would I be if?
It's definitely a big part of my life. So it does. It's kind of hard to separate myself from it,
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, this is what we are. I mean, this is what it is. We're in the drayage business. Port trucker.
Entrepreneurship.
What
do you consider entrepreneurship?
What do I consider it?
Yeah, because that word goes around a lot.
It does. I think it's somebody that makes things happen.
Okay.
I think that's what to me an entrepreneur is. Somebody that gets off their rear and goes out there and is a go-getter and makes things happen rather than waiting for things to happen. I think that's what an entrepreneur is. And there's entrepreneurs too. An entrepreneur is somebody who doesn't want the headaches of a company, doesn't see themselves owning up to those responsibilities, but has the heart of an entrepreneur. And so is literally somebody very valuable in your company because they're giving it as much as you would as an entrepreneur, and they're working. And maybe there's a reward for them too. Maybe, I don't know, there's some bonuses, some whatever have you,
Some stock.
But they have, right? So they have that heart of an entrepreneur, but they're an entrepreneur because they don't want to be the owner. So yeah.
Do you enjoy being involved in the company, or would you rather watch it from a distance if you could?
I think you need to be involved. I think it's a must. I think
you can't let it go, huh?
You know what? I think sometimes I think if you want to be honest to yourself, I think sometimes because of the stress, the demand, I think you owe it to yourself to let go and maybe take some time off and kind of I'm going to say, like, get yourself together, and get a little break time, But as far as like hands off and just letting things kind of run itself kind of thing, I don't think that's very realistic. And I think if you look at any successful company, in many ways, the owners are still involved.
Are you stressed out right now that you've been here for a couple hours? Like,
no,
like the operation.
I'm actually very.
What has happened right now?
No. You know what?
During this time,
there's always things that I can do.
The company's running right now.
The company
you're
is
here chilling with me,
running right, and we've been here for some time.
Yeah.
Obviously we've been hanging out, talking, and I've been having a really good time. I'm not worried right now because I have confidence in the people that help make it happen, right? And that goes
shout out to your people.
Yeah, everything from CSR operations. Again, my wife, she's involved. You have the people, the people that make it happen. That are giving the face of the company out there, which are the drivers, whoever they are. Owner operators, company drivers. If you know that you've given them a level of trust and they have proven themselves, then you can kind of be a little more relaxed, but never hands off. Because I've seen companies that have closed their doors, that have taken that hands-off approach where they think that they can just, again, maybe it's just one of their businesses. Trucking is not everything to them, right? They have like real estate or whatever, right? and they take like this hands-off approach. It's just because they hired a dispatcher and operations guy and like drivers and everything is going to be okay. No, there's a lot of losses that you can have as a company owner, right? In this business, and that's per diems, and that's also inefficiencies like in your operation, equipment, right? Being lost. One thing can really just ruin it for you, honestly. So you have to be very, very much involved.
Auditing, like checking.
Yeah, I mean, just
everything.
looking. I mean, and again, there's sacrifice in there. Sometimes do I wish I was back to being an employee? Yeah, I think I do. In some ways, there's pros and cons to everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
But definitely, I think it's been rewarding. I wouldn't have it any other way. Now looking back, definitely struggled. Definitely a lot of sleepless nights still, but more so back then. As an owner, just a worry, things happening, things out of your control. But we've been working hard at it, educating ourselves, trusting in God, never letting go, and hearing from a lot of wise people too. And I talk a lot sometimes, and sometimes I have a hard time listening to others, but God gave us 2 ears for a reason and one mouth, right? Because sometimes if we close this one up, we can learn a lot,
Mm-hmm.
and I've surrounded myself, and a lot of people have given me the privilege and the opportunity to work with them, and also to sit down, knee to knee, and learn from their mistakes again, right? Because you learn something from someone else's mistake, it could save you a ton of time. So I learned some things that are just like, those clickers, like, man, I've been doing it wrong.
There's always gonna be that one thing that you have
Definitely.
to learn on your own, no matter what.
And that too, yeah. Some things you're going to learn the hard way, and there's a lot of those for sure.
Yeah.
Not easy.
Yeah.
Definitely not easy.
If you could change one thing about the ports, what would you change?
One thing about the ports, man, is appointment systems, and the leverage and the relationship. Also, if we could influence the relationship between truckers, there's our divisions within the trucking community: the drivers, the owner operators, and and then lease drivers versus owner operators, and like all this, But also like the relationship when it comes to the longshoremen and the drivers, kind of. If there's any way of bridging the divide, the things that divide us, at the end of the day, we depend on each other, but they're union. For the most part, we're not. I'm not against unions. I was union for a very long time. I was part of the local Teamsters 396 for UPS. And so I was a shop steward as well. So I've seen the union from the deep part of it to from a worker, from a business owner now, like Elon Musk. I don't know how much you're following, but I'm sure people, he's against unions. He doesn't want unions in as the auto industry is heavily regulated, and there's also a lot of like unions, even in Mexico, right? So I think that union has its place. I think some companies do take advantage of their employees. They're just numbers, and they just care about the bottom line, and then they don't care how they get there, even if they have to, drag some people like under the bus, and for their own, benefit. I mean, but I think that definitely, for the most part, as a business owner, you want to take care of those people. And it's a mutual agreement, right? Mm-hmm. Nobody's forced to work for anybody. If you don't like the work conditions, if you don't like the company, then what are you doing there? Go somewhere else. But I always say that, like, the people that are unhappy are going to be unhappy anywhere. So,
wherever you go, there you are.
Yep, you're going to find wrongs with everything. You're going to find wrongs with the dispatch. You're going to find wrongs with the equipment, with the yard, with the, anything. So, I think there has to be a level of just a content person, man. I mean, don't try to look for always for something, more money, more blah, 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 more, this, more that, better truck, as a driver, just be content for sure.
Has it changed at all since you can remember? You think it's going to change the overall vibe, the overall conditions of working?
I think a lot of changes are going to be coming for sure.
There's a lot of changes, but none of them that benefit the drivers in a way.
Yeah.
Appointment systems, no changes that benefit you.
Yeah, naturally, my tendency is to look at the glass
half full.
No, half empty. My natural.
Okay.
Right. My in like how I've been brought up and but again, we have to train ourselves here, right? So I like to look at things like that, right? The glass being half full, right? Or how do I say no? Yeah, half full, right? Half full. There's going to be challenges such as the trucks, again, the clean air, regulations. There's going to be around 2030 trucks are all going to be electric. But there are some changes that are going to affect us in the short run. And those changes are going to affect the up and coming owner operators, right? The ones that are thinking right now, that are preparing themselves to get a truck and be an owner operator, right? It's always going to affect those people and small companies like us, because we can't afford some of the things to write off some of the costs that some of the bigger ones can, right? And we don't have the resources or sometimes even the knowledge to act. We're mostly reactive instead of proactive, So
it seems they're going to try to like owner operator is going extinct in the terminals. Oh,
they're going to, yeah, definitely. I do see a threat to the owner operator
perfect choice of word.
Model for sure. There's a threat, and we can't hide it. We can't play think like it's all okay. Like, for example, we all knew that by 2019 by 2019 or 2020, when they were gonna already basically stop all the 2008 through 2010 trucks. I don't exactly know the year right now from the top of my head. It kind of went blank on it. They gave us an extension. We already saw it coming. If we didn't prepare for it, that's our fault, not anybody else's, right? Now, we can argue that it doesn't make any sense that, if you sold me a clean truck, right? And I think you said this too.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, you sell me purified water, right? Like, is it purified 2 days from now or a week from now? Yeah,
oh no, the bottle's been open for a month, buddy.
Exactly. So these trucks are clean. They're clean. But of course, they want to get cleaner, right? and it's a business. I get it. It's a business, Lawyers are making money writing up these all
that language.
All the the truck, manufacturers are making money in parts and all that. I get it. But I mean, it again, it's affecting the owner operator for sure, the future owner operator. How does that look like in the future? I mean, that's anybody's guess. I mean, I can't tell you right now to predict the future here. I'm not going to make any predictions, but I do see challenges. It's going to be interesting to find out how everything kind of falls into place.
And who will stand for the long term.
Who will stand. Yep. Yep. So there's the demand, and also the demand here on the West Coast, how that's going to look, because we see kind of China looking for partners such as Mexico, going to, the Gulf Coast, right? Is it Gulf Coast? Yeah, like the Gulf ports.
Coast?
Yeah,
Gulf what?
Well, the ports in Savannah and all these other ports that.
Oh, okay.
Right, and even the East Coast. So, yeah, the demand went up this year, but it's going to be interesting to see where that goes too, because remember, we depend from the volume coming into the ports. We're Containeroz only because containers are coming in.
Yeah.
So that's,
we can't survive on bobtaileros.
We can't, definitely not. So that's feeding, and that's why a lot of longshoremen had a bone to pick when APM terminal when they got approved for the automation, right? They fought it tooth and nail. I mean, I'm in the middle here because I'm pro labor, you know. At the end of the day, whatever
Working class.
exactly whatever affects you. I'm in a different. I'm a trucker. You're a longshoreman, right? We can argue. We can say, well, whatever happens to you doesn't affect me. But eventually, if we're in the same industry, it's gonna affect both of us. You know, a company is in it to make money, right? And these some of these steamship lines are super greedy, you know, and they will make profit because they're in competition with each other. So they're willing to go automated. They're willing to automate even trucks later on. You got a local trucking company to us that is owned by a steamship line that also owns warehouses and bought a trucking company about a year ago. So it's expanding. That you cannot be ignorant and not think, also be what's the word, naive, right? And think like, oh, they're never going to replace drivers. As soon as the technology comes, self-driving trucks, and they don't need a driver in there, they're going to do it. Mm-hmm. Whether that's in a decade from now, in 30 years from now, but you know, you got to look at those things, right? We have to look at them and fight together for the things that affect all of us, for sure.
What does Containeroz mean to you?
Containeroz. So interestingly, I've always seen it, right? The brand Containeroz, right?
What did you think at first?
At first, I'm not really into brands, nothing like that, right? So I thought it was pretty cool. You know, as a driver, looking at, you know, owner-operators sporting Containeroz, and I'm like, what is that? Like, what is it? A movement? What is it? Like a clothing brand?
What is it?
What is it? You know, and then, you know, obviously, eventually, later on, I didn't know who was behind it. You know, I didn't know who was behind it. Obviously, you're behind it, Containeroz. But I have come to know more of the brand and the you know. Lately, and you know, I'm for anybody who's I think we need it too. Because, you know, nobody's out there representing like I think Containeroz kind of represents, and you know, the industry that we're in, right? And I think it's very unique. I think it's very, very interesting, and I think that at least a lot of the people that I know kind of stand behind the brand and listen to the podcast. That's how I found out that there's actually a Containeroz podcast. And then, as it turns out, then we meet and we're like, hey, let's sit down and talk, you know.
Can you say what I told you to say, though?
Oh, yeah. Let me read the script here. Yeah, so I see the potential for sure, man. Yeah. For sure.
Cool.
So I'm very excited for you, honestly. I hear the things you're trying to do, and I definitely see the support, and I see the need for there to be a Containeroz you know, brand in this industry, for sure. Maybe I mean, there's endless possibilities, right? Endless possibilities for Containeroz, but I think what you're doing is part of it, and there's a bigger picture out there. I think that we all form a part of it, so there's a need for associations, right, in the trucking industry, for whether it's owner operators or, you know, drivers that are wanting to become an owner operator, but also companies, right? Because we're not unified at all. I think we're getting more unified, though, for sure.
Yeah, it's just gonna have to be like that, like unofficial, though, because the minute it goes official, correct, it's like, I don't know.
I talk to a lot of company owners, and it has only increased in the last 2 years, where we're bouncing ideas off of each other. We're not seeing each other as competition, like many. I think that's like the old mentality too, like, you know, that's kind of phasing out because there's new people coming into the industry and kind of helping it get to that next level. So people like you and me, like, we're talking, you know, me and you know, we went different directions. You know, you're behind your brand, and, you know, and growing that, and I'm behind the brand of the trucking, my trucking brand and industry
Mhm.
and service provider. But we're passionate about it, and that's what we share, right? As owners,
Yeah.
is the passion and the fact that we all share the same struggle, right? And we can relate to each other.
Yeah.
In very many ways, like different ways, but many ways.
Yeah.
You know.
Back to the association thing, because I think
Yeah.
when you do association, you kind of it becomes, you're trying to do good, but it becomes a conflict of interest, because now if you're an association, you kind of have to cater to a certain
That's true.
demographic within that realm.
It gets
So
sticky.
if I want to support owner ops, then I kind of let down drivers. If I want to be strictly drivers, I let down
That's
owner
true.
ops. So
There's
I felt more like a broader, like,
It's needed.
It's
needed. I think more than ever. I think maybe Containeroz becoming like a how can I say this? Like kind of like helping, becoming a resource. In some ways, like helping the drivers, because everybody can stand behind a brand and kind of, because we're all Containeros. Like we can relate to it. We can identify ourselves as that's who we are. Like if you're passionate about it. I know a lot of people that are passionate about what they do.
Today you might be the guy asking for work on it, and on the platform, and then next year you might be the one looking for drivers on.
Exactly.
That's
exactly.
the fun part.
We're scaling up in this ladder, right? We're climbing up the ladder, and everybody is growing in some area in their life, whether it's personal side or whatever have you. But for us, it's we want to get somewhere. We don't want to take 2 steps back. We want to continue pressing forward, and and we all have a race to run. Everybody has a different race to run. We're at different pace, but nevertheless, everybody has a race to run, and it's going to come down to how you run your race. That's when it's going to come down for you and for me, for everybody out there, for sure.
Yeah. I know you got somewhere to be. You got to go pick up your kids.
I would love to. I would love to stay here. We had obviously a good time prior to the setting up for the podcast, and
let's end it with this, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
If you could go back, what would you tell 18-year-old Tony?
Wow. Stay firm. Stay firm in your faith. Don't be a hardhead. Like don't be hard-headed.
Just a little bit.
Yeah. Be adopt a sense of humility, and not be so like pride. Pride gets in the way of a lot of us, and the earlier you learn to not put yourself in a pedestal, and kind of put yourself down here and humble yourself, right? There's a verse in the Bible that says that God resiste a los soberbios, and he gives grace to the humble, right? So the pride, the proud, the arrogant, like God resists those kinds of people, and he gives grace to the humble. So the humble, not like, somebody who's like, pobrecito, like, no, I'm talking about humble in spirit, and mindset, like where you can take advice, where you can,
no matter what level you're at,
exactly,
you're learning, feel better than anyone else.
Not feel better than someone else, and look at people, esteem people higher than yourself. It's kind of the idea, right? So even though I just hired a driver, I'm not looking down at him. I'm not looking at him equal, obviously, because we have both different responsibilities, right? But at the same time, don't look at him like he's lesser than you, and humanly speaking, like on a human level, Okay. Like we're all equal in that sense, right? We're all made in God's image in that sense. So, and respect people, right? One of the guys in our company, drivers, he tells me about mutual respect. Mutual respect. And it's true. Like you have to have respect for others and for yourself, for sure. Yeah.
All right. Well, there it is, guys. Tony León, owner of Leoness Express Inc.
There you go.
Thank you so much for
appreciate
your
time
and
anytime, man. I had a blast
sharing your wisdom out here.
Yep.
Catch you guys on the next one. We're out.
Perfect.
Peace.